She said, "I need freedom. Let's open our marriage after 6 years." So I replied, "Great, I'll start with your boss." And she got fired the next day. Now she's begging, "Please, I'll do anything," but her family cut her off. The champagne sat untouched between us, bubbles rising in expensive crystal that suddenly felt like props in someone else's celebration. I'm Marcus, 36, aerospace engineer at Stellardyne Industries, designing guidance systems for commercial satellites, the kind of stable career that pays well without office politics. I'd brought Diana to Rosewood for our 6th anniversary, the same French restaurant where I'd proposed, expecting a romantic evening celebrating what we'd built together. Instead, I watched my wife fidget with her wine glass across the candlelit table, tension radiating from her like heat, and knew something bad was coming. We'd met 7 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding, married a year later in a ceremony her parents funded to the tune of $45,000, spent the first few years building what I thought was a solid partnership based on shared interests and genuine affection. Diana worked in corporate communications at Vanguard Media Group managing executive messaging, made decent money but always seemed frustrated her role wasn't more prestigious or visible. Around year 4 things shifted. She became increasingly critical of our lifestyle and my career trajectory, started working longer hours and attending more happy hours with her team, coming home with stories about her boss Veronica, the recently divorced executive director who threw lavish parties and dated younger men. I'd met Veronica twice at company events, noticed how she'd gone out of her way to talk to me, asking detailed questions about my work, touching my arm when she laughed, commenting that Diana was so lucky to have someone with my intelligence and looks. Diana had seemed pleased by the attention then, even bragged her boss was low-key jealous of our relationship, but now I wondered if that dynamic had planted darker seeds. The waiter cleared our appetizer plates when Diana set down her glass with deliberate precision and said, "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something important, something I've been thinking about for a while now." I set down my fork, recognizing the serious tone. "Okay, what's going on?" "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching lately, really examining what I want from life, and I think I need more freedom to explore who I am as an individual before I turn 35. The corporate speak sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced this in her car. "Freedom to explore what exactly?" "I think we should open our marriage, not end it, just create space for both of us to experience other connections. It's becoming really common among progressive couples our age." She delivered this with confidence, completely missing how her hands trembled around her wine glass. I sat back, studying her face in the flickering candlelight. "You want to open our marriage? After 6 years? On our anniversary?" I knew you'd react like this, all defensive, but this isn't about us failing, it's about personal growth and not feeling stifled by conventional expectations. When you say open the marriage, you already have someone specific in mind, don't you? Her eyes widened slightly, confirming my suspicion. This isn't about any one person, it's a general philosophy about relationship structures. General philosophy. Got it. I picked up my water glass, let the silence stretch until she started fidgeting. "So if we're doing this, opening things up with no restrictions, I assume I'm free to pursue anyone I'm interested in?" "Well, yes, theoretically, though I assumed you'd need time to adjust." "No adjustment needed. Actually, I know exactly who I'll start with." I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a name I'd added after Diana's last company event. "I'll reach out to Veronica tomorrow, ask her to dinner, she's made it pretty clear she's interested." The color drained from Diana's face faster than I'd thought possible. "What? Marcus, you can't do that." "Why not? You just said open marriage, freedom to explore, she's single, she's interested, seems perfect." "Because she's my boss, that's completely inappropriate. It would make my work situation impossible." "Funny, you didn't mention workplace relationships being off-limits 30 seconds ago when you proposed this. Seems like you're imposing rules that serve only your interests." I kept my tone conversational, watching her scramble. "This isn't what I meant, you're twisting everything." Her voice rose, other diners glancing our way. "I'm twisting nothing. You want an open marriage, I'm agreeing enthusiastically and identifying my first choice. Veronica specifically told you at the holiday party that you were lucky to have such an attractive husband, remember? I watched the memory register on her face. That was just small talk, she didn't mean anything. Maybe not, only one way to find out, and if workplace dynamics are a concern, you could always quit, plenty of other communications positions out there. The suggestion hung between us like a challenge. You're doing this to punish me, to make me take it back. I'm doing exactly what you asked for, embracing this new open marriage, no punishment, just participation. I signaled the waiter for another scotch. Unless you're saying you don't actually want this, you just wanted to float the idea to see how I'd react, make me jealous enough to appreciate you more? The accuracy must have shown on her face because she immediately looked away. That's not, you're making this something it's not. Then what is it? Because you just proposed fundamentally restructuring our marriage on our anniversary, and when I agreed and named my first interest, you immediately tried to establish restrictions protecting your professional life while leaving you free to pursue whoever sparked this conversation. I kept my voice low, calm. So either we're doing this for real, no restrictions, or you're running some manipulation that's already backfiring spectacularly. She opened her mouth, closed it, no words coming. I think I need to use the restroom. She fled toward the back while I sat there with my fresh scotch, marveling at how 6 years could collapse in 15 minutes. When she returned, eyes red but makeup repaired, she tried. Can we just forget I brought this up, go back to enjoying our anniversary? No, you don't propose opening your marriage then take it back like suggesting a different restaurant, you don't unsay this. I finished my scotch. You wanted freedom, I'm giving it to you, complete freedom for both of us. Starting tomorrow I'll message Veronica, see if she's available this weekend. Please don't do this, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have said anything. Too late, the idea's out there, and honestly it sounds liberating, no more pretending to be satisfied with someone who clearly isn't satisfied with me. I requested the check, ignored her attempts to continue talking. We drove home in crushing silence, her crying quietly while I focused on the road, thinking about everything I'd overlooked. In our parking garage, she grabbed my arm. I don't want to open our marriage, I never really wanted that, I just felt stuck and I read some stupid article about radical honesty. Radical honesty would have been telling me you felt stuck, asking for counseling or finding ways to reconnect. This wasn't honesty, Diana, this was strategy and it failed. I pulled my arm free, walked to our building without looking back. Inside, she tried tearful apology, promised to forget the whole thing. I don't want you to contact Veronica. Please, Marcus, can we just go to bed and talk tomorrow when we're calmer? I am calm, perfectly calm, and I'm absolutely contacting Veronica tomorrow because you're right about one thing. I do need freedom. Freedom from a relationship where my wife views me as a chess piece whenever she feels bored. I pulled spare bedding from the closet, set up the couch while she stood in the hallway looking lost. This is our anniversary, you're really going to sleep on the couch? You're really acting surprised that proposing we sleep with other people has consequences? I lay down, turned my back, listened to her eventual retreat and the sound of crying through the wall until I fell into fitful sleep, already planning exactly what I'd say to Veronica in the morning. The next morning I woke up with my neck cramped from the couch, checked my phone to find 17 missed texts from Diana ranging from desperate apologies to angry accusations that I was overreacting. I deleted them without responding, made coffee, showered, and opened LinkedIn on my laptop before leaving for work. Veronica's profile appeared immediately in my recent searches from when I'd looked her up after Diana's last company event, Executive Director of Strategic Communications at Vanguard Media Group, Stanford MBA, divorced 3 years ago according to the personal details Diana had shared during her increasingly frequent stories about her boss's glamorous single life. I crafted my message carefully, professional but clear about my intentions. Hi Veronica, this is Marcus, Diana's husband. We've met a couple times at Vanguard events. I wanted to reach out because Diana and I had a conversation last night about opening our marriage, and she encouraged both of us to explore connections with other people. I've always enjoyed our conversations at those company functions and wondered if you'd be interested in having dinner sometime, just the two of us. I understand if this is unexpected or if you'd prefer to decline, but I wanted to be direct about my interest. Best, Marcus. I read it 3 times, checked for typos, hit send at exactly 7:42 in the morning, then closed my laptop and headed to work like I just sent a normal professional email instead of potentially detonating my wife's career. My phone buzzed 28 minutes later while I was reviewing satellite trajectory calculations at my desk, a LinkedIn notification showing Veronica had responded. Marcus, I have to admit this is quite a surprise, but not an entirely unwelcome one. Diana mentioned something this morning about relationship changes, but I didn't realize she meant this specifically. I've always found our conversations intellectually stimulating, and I'd definitely be interested in dinner. Are you free Friday evening? There's a new Spanish tapas place downtown that's supposed to be excellent. Looking forward to continuing our conversation in a more personal setting, Veronica. I stared at the message, simultaneously impressed by how quickly she'd responded and disturbed by the implication that Diana had already mentioned relationship changes at work this morning, probably trying to get ahead of whatever narrative she thought I'd create. I confirmed Friday evening, suggested meeting at 7, then screenshot the exchange and saved it to a folder on my phone labeled simply documentation, because something told me I'd need records of everything that was about to unfold. Diana called me at 11:30, her voice shaking with barely controlled panic. Marcus, what did you do? What did you send to Veronica? Exactly what I said I'd do last night. I reached out to ask her to dinner. She said yes, we're meeting Friday at that Spanish place on 5th Street. I kept reviewing my calculations while talking, refusing to let her hear any satisfaction in my tone. She said yes? She actually agreed to go out with you? The disbelief in her voice was almost insulting, like the idea that another woman might find me attractive was completely inconceivable. Why wouldn't she? I'm reasonably intelligent, not bad looking according to you when we first met, have a solid career, and according to your proposal last night I'm now officially available for dating. This isn't dating, this is you trying to humiliate me at my workplace. Do you have any idea how awkward this makes things for me? About as awkward as proposing an open marriage on our anniversary made things for me, seems fair. I heard background noise change on her end, realized she'd gone somewhere private. I'm coming home during lunch, we need to talk about this face to face. I'll be at work, but I'll be home normal time around 6 if you want to talk then. I hung up before she could respond, went back to my trajectories, found myself unable to focus on the mathematics because my mind kept circling back to how quickly everything had unraveled. Diana showed up at my office building at 12:15, something she'd never done in 6 years of marriage, talked her way past security by claiming to be my wife with an emergency, appeared at my cubicle looking like she'd been crying in her car for the past hour. Marcus, please, can we go somewhere and talk? I glanced around at my curious coworkers, decided this conversation didn't need an audience, grabbed my badge and followed her to the parking garage. In her car, she turned to me with mascara-smudged desperation. I made a terrible mistake last night, I wasn't thinking clearly, I'd had too much wine and I was feeling insecure about turning 35 next month, none of it was real. Felt pretty real when you used corporate therapy speak to explain why you needed freedom, felt rehearsed actually, like you'd been planning that speech. I read some article about couples who revitalized their marriages through unconventional arrangements. I thought maybe if I suggested it you'd fight for us, prove that you still wanted me enough to get jealous. There it was, the admission I'd suspected, the whole thing was a test. So you manipulated me on our anniversary to manufacture jealousy and prove my devotion, and now you're shocked that instead of playing along I agreed and found someone actually interested in me. I didn't think you'd actually reach out to Veronica. I thought you'd get upset and argue and show some emotion instead of just calmly accepting it like you don't even care. She was crying now, real tears mixing with the smudged makeup. You wanted emotion? Here's emotion. I'm furious that you'd play games with our marriage. I'm hurt that you think so little of me that you'd test my devotion instead of just talking about your feelings, and I'm relieved that you showed me who you really are before we had kids and made this even more complicated. I watched her face crumple. Please just cancel the date with Veronica. Tell her it was a misunderstanding, we can go to counseling, I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. No, I'm going to dinner Friday. I'm going to see what it's like to spend time with someone who doesn't view our relationship as a game board where she moves pieces around for entertainment, and you're going to live with the consequences of your manipulation. I got out of her car, walked back to my building, left her sitting there sobbing in the parking garage. When I got back to my desk, I had 3 texts from Diana, increasingly desperate variations on, "Please don't do this," and 1 message from an unknown number that turned out to be Veronica. Diana just came to my office extremely upset, demanded I cancel our dinner plans, and said some things about you that were frankly concerning and unprofessional. I've documented the interaction with HR because attempting to control my personal life crosses professional boundaries. I wanted you to know in case this becomes an issue. Still looking forward to Friday, Veronica. I read the message twice. Processing what Diana had just done, she'd confronted her boss about a consensual date between 2 adults and apparently made demands that got documented by HR. The self-destruction was happening faster than I'd anticipated. Diana came home at 4:30, 3 hours before her normal time, walked into our apartment with the shell-shocked expression of someone whose world was actively collapsing. I was at the kitchen table with my laptop, working remotely for the afternoon after the parking garage drama, looked up when she dropped her bag and just stood there staring at me like I was a stranger. "I got called into HR," she said, voice flat and distant. They wanted to discuss my confrontation with Veronica and what they called unprofessional conduct regarding personal boundaries. I closed my laptop, gave her my full attention because despite everything I wasn't cruel enough to ignore genuine distress. "What happened exactly?" "I went to her office after you wouldn't answer my calls. I was panicking about Friday and I just needed her to understand that this whole thing was a mistake, that you reaching out to her was because of a misunderstanding between us." She sat down heavily in the chair across from me. I asked her to cancel the dinner plans and she just looked at me like I'd lost my mind, said my marriage arrangements weren't her concern and that she found me attractive and interesting and saw no reason to decline. The way Diana said it, mimicking Veronica's confident tone, revealed how much the rejection had stung. "So you demanded she cancel, your boss, and thought that would go well?" "I didn't demand, I explained the situation and asked her to please respect my position as her employee and not pursue something with my husband while I report to her." Diana's hands were shaking as she poured herself water from the pitcher on the table. She said I was attempting to control her personal life and creating a hostile work environment. Then she called HR right there in front of me and filed a formal complaint about the interaction. I sat back, genuinely surprised at how nuclear this had gone. "She filed a complaint while you were still in her office?" She picked up her desk phone, called the HR director, and said, "Sandra, I need to document an incident that just occurred involving Diana Reeves. One of my direct reports attempted to dictate who I can and cannot date in my personal life and became confrontational when I declined to comply with her demands." Diana's voice broke remembering it. Then I got escorted to a conference room where Sandra and my department head Tom were waiting. They had me sit down and explain exactly what happened, why I'd confronted Veronica, what the context was for my behavior. "And you told them what?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "I told them the truth, that you and I had discussed opening our marriage and it was supposed to be theoretical but you took it literally and contacted Veronica, that the whole thing was meant to test whether you'd fight for our relationship but it backfired, that I panicked when I realized you were actually going through with dating my boss." She looked at me with hollow eyes. Tom kept asking why I would initiate a relationship test at work, why I'd involve my supervisor in my personal life, whether I understood how my judgment appeared to leadership. The corporate death spiral, I'd seen it happen to colleagues who crossed professional lines. Once leadership questioned your judgment, everything you did got scrutinized through that lens. Sandra asked if I'd considered the optics of using workplace relationships as part of a marital manipulation strategy. She actually used those words, manipulation strategy, like I was some villain in a soap opera. Diana put her head in her hands. Then she asked if there were other instances of poor judgment they should be aware of, other times I'd let personal drama affect my professional conduct. I said no, but she didn't look convinced. I felt a flicker of sympathy, quickly suppressed by remembering why we were here. What happened after that? They put me on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation into my judgment and professional conduct, said I need to be evaluated for my fitness to continue in a client-facing role where sound decision-making is critical. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. "Marcus, I could lose my job over this. They're questioning whether I have the maturity and stability to represent the company to executives and media. You confronted your boss about her personal life and admitted to manipulating your marriage as a test. Those are pretty significant judgment issues from an HR perspective. I kept my tone neutral but factual. This is your fault. If you hadn't contacted Veronica, none of this would have happened. You knew it would make my work situation impossible, but you did it anyway to punish me. The blame shifting was pure reflex, classic Diana when consequences appeared. I did exactly what you proposed, opened our marriage and pursued someone I was interested in. You're the one who took a personal issue to your workplace and made it your boss's problem. I stood up, poured myself coffee, turned back to find her crying silently. You wanted to test me, see if I'd fight for you when threatened. Congratulations, you got your answer. I don't fight for people who manipulate me. I made a mistake, one mistake after 6 years together, and you're going to let it destroy everything? Her voice rose with anger mixed into the desperation. One mistake would be forgetting our anniversary or saying something hurtful in an argument. This was calculated manipulation using our marriage as a game piece, and when it didn't go your way you escalated by involving your workplace and your boss. I sat back down, looked at her directly. You created this situation, every single piece of it, and now you're dealing with consequences that feel disproportionate because you never actually expected me to call your bluff. She stared at me with something like hatred mixed with disbelief. So you're still going to dinner with Veronica on Friday, even knowing I might lose my job over this? Especially knowing that, because it proves you never thought about consequences, you just assumed I'd react according to your script, and when I didn't you tried to force the outcome you wanted through increasingly desperate measures. I drank my coffee, let the silence build. You made your choices, Diana, I'm making mine, and Friday night I'm having dinner with someone who apparently thinks I'm worth spending time with. She left the kitchen without another word, went to our bedroom and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. I heard her on the phone moments later talking to someone, probably her mother or her sister, telling whatever version of events made her the victim. My phone buzzed with a message from Veronica. Just wanted to confirm we're still on for Friday. I'm genuinely looking forward to it, and for what it's worth I'm sorry the situation has gotten so complicated at work. That wasn't my intention. I replied immediately. Still definitely on for Friday, and none of this is your fault. You responded to a straightforward invitation from a married man whose wife suggested exactly this arrangement. Diana's workplace drama is entirely of her own making. 3 dots appeared, then. I appreciate that. I'll admit when I first saw your message this morning I was surprised but also intrigued. Diana has complained about you at work quite a bit over the past few months, calling you boring and too stable, but from our conversations at company events you've always struck me as thoughtful and engaging. I'm curious about the disconnect. I stared at that message, processing the information that Diana had been bad-mouthing me to her coworkers and boss, calling me boring and too stable like those were character flaws instead of the exact qualities she'd claimed to value when we got married. That's interesting to learn. I had no idea she was discussing our relationship negatively at work. Add some context to why she might have felt the need for dramatic gestures. I typed, keeping my response measured despite the anger building in my chest. See you Friday at 7, looking forward to hearing your perspective on things. That night Diana emerged from the bedroom around 9, red-eyed and exhausted, found me on the couch reading a book about orbital mechanics. My mom wants to talk to both of us, she said quietly. She's concerned about what I told her and thinks we need family intervention before this gets worse. This is between us, not a family matter. My family paid for our wedding, they've supported us financially multiple times, they deserve to know what's happening. The entitlement in her voice, the assumption that her parents' money bought them voting rights in our marriage. Fine, we can talk to your parents, but I'm telling them exactly what happened, no edited version, no spin. She nodded, seeming to think that family pressure would somehow make me abandon Friday's dinner plans, not realizing that everything she'd set in motion was already past the point of salvage. Friday evening arrived with the weight of inevitability. I spent the afternoon choosing what to wear with more care than I'd given my appearance in months, settled on dark jeans and a button-down shirt that Diana had once said made me look distinguished, felt only mild guilt about the symbolism. Diana had been sleeping in the guest room since Tuesday, communicating through terse text messages about logistics and her ongoing HR investigation, pointedly ignoring my preparations for the evening she'd inadvertently orchestrated. I left the apartment at 6:30, drove downtown to Castellanos, the Spanish tapas place Veronica had suggested, arrived 15 minutes early and sat at the bar nursing a gin and tonic while my phone buzzed with messages from Diana that I'd stopped reading. Veronica walked in at 7 exactly, wearing a deep green dress that highlighted her figure without being inappropriate, spotted me immediately and smiled with genuine warmth that made something in my chest unclench slightly. "Marcus, you look great, thank you for suggesting this place, I've been wanting to try it for months." She slid onto the bar stool beside me, ordered a glass of Rioja, turned to face me with the same direct attention I remembered from company events. "I have to ask before we go any further, are you absolutely certain about this dinner, about pursuing something while you're technically still married? Because I don't want to be part of anyone's revenge plot or rebound situation." The directness was refreshing after days of Diana's emotional manipulation. "I'm certain, and for what it's worth, this isn't revenge, it's me realizing that my marriage ended the moment Diana proposed opening it as a test of my devotion. Everything since then has just been watching the structure collapse." We moved to our table, ordered an array of tapas to share, patatas bravas and gambas al ajillo and pan con tomate, fell into conversation that flowed easier than anything I'd experienced with Diana in years. Veronica told me about her divorce 3 years ago from a finance executive who'd prioritized his career over their relationship, how she'd rebuilt her life through work and travel and deliberately choosing quality over quantity in her social connections. "Diana talks about you at work quite a bit," Veronica said carefully, spearing a piece of octopus. "She's been complaining for months about how you're boring and too stable, how you never take risks or surprise her, how she feels like she's living with an accountant instead of a partner." The words stung despite my suspicion they were coming. That's interesting because boring and stable were supposedly my best qualities when we got married. I had a solid career and didn't play games and showed up when I said I would. From my perspective as someone who's watched her work performance, Diana has been increasingly erratic over the past 6 months, missing deadlines, making poor decisions on client communications, seeming distracted and unfocused in meetings. Veronica's professional assessment was devastating in its clinical accuracy. I've been concerned about her judgment for a while, which is why when she confronted me about our dinner plans, my first instinct was to document it with HR. This wasn't an isolated incident of poor decision-making, it was a pattern. I sat back, processing this information. "You think she's been struggling at work for 6 months? At least, possibly longer. There was an incident in March where she sent a draft press release to a client instead of internal review, nearly cost us a major account. She blamed it on a software glitch, but I suspected she just wasn't paying attention." Veronica paused, seeming to weigh her words. "I don't want to violate confidentiality, but her performance reviews have been trending downward, and this recent incident with confronting me and admitting to marital manipulation strategies raised serious red flags about her fitness for client-facing work." The conversation shifted as we finished our tapas, moved into more personal territory. I found myself telling Veronica about my work designing satellite guidance systems, the satisfaction of solving complex mathematical problems that had real-world applications, my frustration with Diana's inability to understand why I found my career fulfilling rather than just financially sufficient. "You light up when you talk about your work," Veronica observed. "Your whole demeanor changes, you use your hands more and your voice gets more animated. It's attractive watching someone be genuinely passionate about what they do." The compliment landed differently than Diana's had, felt earned rather than transactional. Diana used to ask about my projects when we first dated, but somewhere along the way I became boring for caring about orbital mechanics instead of whatever trendy restaurant her coworkers were posting about. "Her loss," Veronica said simply, reaching across the table to touch my hand briefly. "I find intelligence far more compelling than flash, and from our conversations you have both in reasonable measure." We ordered dessert, shared a flan and churros with chocolate, talked about travel and books and the kind of comfortable subjects that revealed compatibility without forcing it. Around 9:30, as we were finishing our coffee, my phone started buzzing insistently with calls from Diana that I continued to ignore. "You should probably check that," Veronica said gently. "It might be important." I glanced at my screen, saw 7 missed calls and a text that read, "Please come home, emergency, I need you." Against my better judgment, I excused myself and called Diana back from outside the restaurant. "What's the emergency?" "They fired me, Marcus. I just got the email. Effective immediately, they're terminating my employment for gross misconduct and violation of professional boundaries." Her voice was ragged from crying. "They're citing the HR incident with Veronica and my admission about manipulating our marriage and concerns about my judgment and decision-making. They're giving me 2 weeks severance and that's it." I leaned against the brick wall, watching traffic pass on the street. "I'm sorry that happened, Diana, genuinely, but I'm in the middle of dinner and there's nothing I can do about your termination tonight." "You're still there with her, even after everything that's happened? You're choosing to stay at dinner with the woman who got me fired instead of coming home to your wife who just lost her career." The accusation was predictable but still infuriating. "Veronica didn't get you fired. You got yourself fired by confronting your boss about her personal life and confessing to using marital manipulation tactics. Those were your choices, your consequences. I made those choices because you forced me into an impossible situation by actually going through with this insane open marriage plan." Her voice rose to a near shriek. "I need you to come home right now. I need my husband with me while I'm falling apart. I'll be home later tonight, we can talk then, but I'm not leaving my dinner because you're experiencing consequences for your own actions." I hung up before she could respond, turned my phone to silent, walked back inside to find Veronica watching me with concerned eyes. "Everything okay?" "Diana got fired, she's having a meltdown and wants me to come home immediately. I told her we'd talk later." I sat down, signaled the waiter for the check. "I'm sorry our evening got interrupted by her drama." "Don't apologize, this is clearly a complicated situation. Do you need to go?" Veronica's face showed genuine concern rather than judgment. "Not particularly, she created this situation and I'm not going to reward bad behavior by abandoning a perfectly good evening to comfort her." I paid the check over Veronica's protests about splitting it, walked her to her car in the parking garage, stood in the awkward space between friendly goodbye and something more. "I had a really good time tonight," Veronica said, keys in hand. "Despite the complicated circumstances and the dramatic phone calls, I enjoyed talking with you, learning about your work, seeing who you actually are instead of the boring, stable husband Diana complains about. I had a good time too, better than I've had in a long time honestly. Thank you for taking a chance on dinner with a married man in the middle of a crisis." She laughed, touched my arm. "Let's do it again soon, maybe somewhere without cell service so your wife can't interrupt." She kissed my cheek, got in her car, drove away leaving me standing in the parking garage processing what had just happened. I drove home slowly, dreading the scene waiting for me, found Diana on the couch surrounded by tissues and empty wine bottles, laptop open to her termination email. "They said my conduct was unbecoming of someone in a leadership track position," she said without looking at me. "They questioned my ability to maintain professional boundaries and cited multiple performance issues over the past 6 months. They're making me sound like I'm completely incompetent." I sat in the chair across from her, maintained distance. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to acknowledge that your actions had consequences, that reaching out to Veronica knowing it would complicate my work life was calculated and cruel. My actions were a direct response to your manipulation. You don't get to play victim when your test backfired. This isn't about the test anymore. This is about you choosing revenge over our marriage, choosing dinner with another woman over supporting your wife in crisis." She stood up unsteadily, the wine evident in her movements. "I lost my job today, my career is destroyed, my boss is dating my husband, and you're acting like I deserve all of this. You do deserve consequences, maybe not termination, but definitely consequences for manipulating our marriage and involving your workplace in personal drama." I stood up too, matched her intensity. "You wanted freedom, you wanted to test me, you wanted drama and excitement. Congratulations, Diana, you got everything you asked for." She threw her wine glass at the wall behind me, red liquid and glass shards exploding across the white paint. Get out of my apartment right now." "It's our apartment, both names on the lease, but I'll happily pack a bag and stay somewhere else tonight." I walked to our bedroom, threw clothes and toiletries into my gym bag while she screamed obscenities from the living room, left without saying goodbye, drove to a hotel near my office and checked in for the weekend. My phone had 63 messages by midnight, Diana cycling through rage and despair and desperate bargaining. I read none of them completely, just set my phone aside and slept better than I had in a week. Sunday afternoon I returned to the apartment to find Diana's parents waiting in the living room, her father Richard standing by the window with his retired judge posture, her mother Patricia perched on the edge of the couch looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Diana sat in the armchair looking small and defeated, eyes puffy from what I assumed was 2 days of continuous crying. "Marcus, thank you for coming," Richard said with the formal tone he used when delivering verdicts. "Diana called us Friday night after you left, told us about her job situation and the state of your marriage. We drove up yesterday to understand what's happening." I set my bag down, stayed standing near the door. "I'm happy to explain my perspective, though I'm sure Diana has already given you hers. She told us you proposed opening your marriage, and when she objected you pursued her boss out of spite, resulting in her termination," Patricia said, voice tight with disapproval. "Is that accurate?" "No, that's the opposite of what happened." I looked at Diana, who wouldn't meet my eyes. "Diana proposed opening our marriage on our anniversary as what she later admitted was a test of my devotion. When I agreed and named someone I was interested in, she tried to backtrack, then confronted her boss and got herself fired for unprofessional conduct." Richard's expression shifted, the judge weighing testimony. "Diana, is this true?" "It's not that simple. I suggested we discuss our relationship structure and Marcus took it to an extreme. He deliberately chose my boss knowing it would destroy my career." Diana's voice was defensive, still clinging to her narrative. "I suggested it as a theoretical conversation about modern relationships. You specifically said you wanted to open our marriage to explore other connections before turning 35. You talked about needing freedom and personal growth. That's not theoretical." I pulled out my phone, opened my voice memo app. "I recorded part of our anniversary dinner conversation because I had a feeling you'd try to rewrite history." Richard held out his hand for my phone. I played him the relevant sections, Diana's voice clear as she proposed the open marriage and talked about creating space for other experiences. Patricia's face went white listening to her daughter manipulate our relationship. Richard's jaw tightened with what I recognized as profound disappointment. "Diana, you told us Marcus initiated this," Patricia said quietly. "You said he'd become controlling and was trying to humiliate you at work." I was upset. I didn't explain it properly. The context matters more than the exact sequence of events. Diana was backpedaling desperately. "Marcus knew contacting Veronica would cause problems at my job. He did it to punish me for having legitimate relationship concerns." "Legitimate concerns you expressed through manipulation and testing rather than honest conversation." Richard's courtroom voice was devastating. "You orchestrated a scenario designed to manufacture jealousy, and when it backfired you involved your workplace and blamed your husband for consequences you created." "Dad, you don't understand how unhappy I've been, how boring and predictable our life had become. I needed something to change." Diana was crying now, reaching for sympathy. "I made a mistake in how I handled it, but Marcus has been completely cruel about punishing me." "You want to talk about cruelty?" I finally let some anger show. "You spent months bad-mouthing me to your coworkers, calling me boring and too stable, complaining about our life to anyone who'd listen instead of talking to me about your feelings. Then you manipulated our marriage as some kind of test, and when it didn't go according to your script you tried to control your boss's personal life and got yourself fired." I looked at her parents. "I'm not the villain here. I'm the person who finally stopped accepting being treated like an emotional support ATM who exists to validate her while she shops for upgrades." Richard sat down heavily on the couch. "Diana, your sister told us something last week that we didn't want to believe about a pattern of manipulative behavior going back to your teenage years, sabotaging her relationships when you felt insecure, lying to family members to get what you wanted. We defended you then, but this recording makes me wonder if Emily was right about your character." "What?" "Emily's been trying to turn you against me for years because she's jealous. You can't believe her over your own daughter." Diana's desperation was palpable. "I can believe evidence." Richard held up my phone. This recording shows calculated manipulation, your admission to HR about relationship tests shows poor judgment, your confrontation with your supervisor shows inability to maintain professional boundaries. These aren't the actions of someone who made one mistake. Diana, this is a pattern. Patricia was crying quietly now. We raised you better than this. We gave you every advantage, paid for your education and your wedding, supported you financially whenever you asked, and this is what you do with those privileges? Mom, please, I need your support right now. I lost my job, my marriage is falling apart, I'm drowning here. Diana reached for her mother's hand. What happened to family sticking together? Family requires trust and honesty, Richard said. You've lied to us about the situation with Marcus. You've apparently been lying about your job performance for months based on what your termination letter cited. We can't support someone who won't take accountability for their actions. He stood up, looked at me directly. Marcus, I apologize for believing Diana's version without hearing yours. You've clearly been dealing with a difficult situation with more grace than she deserved. I appreciate that, sir. I watched Diana's face crumble as she realized her parents weren't going to rescue her. What we're going to do, Richard continued, is cut Diana off financially until she demonstrates genuine accountability and behavior change. Her trust fund access is frozen as of today. We won't be helping with rent or expenses or legal fees. He turned to Diana. You need to face real consequences for once in your life instead of being bailed out like you have been since college. Maybe then you'll develop some character. You can't do this. I have no job, no savings. I can't afford the apartment alone. Diana's voice rose to a shriek. Then you'll need to find a cheaper place and a new job, like millions of people do every day without family money to cushion them, Patricia said with surprising steel. We love you, Diana, but we won't enable this behavior anymore. They left shortly after, Diana collapsing into hysterical sobs as the door closed behind them. I stood there watching her fall apart and felt nothing but distant sympathy, the kind you'd feel for a stranger's misfortune. This is all your fault, she gasped between sobs. You turned my family against me. No, you did that yourself by lying to them. I just provided the truth. I picked up my bag. I'll be staying at a hotel while we figure out next steps, probably filing for divorce next week. Divorce? Marcus, please. I'll do anything, I'll change, I'll get therapy, just please don't leave me with nothing. Her desperation was complete now, no more manipulation tactics, just raw panic. You should have thought about that before you tested our marriage. Actions have consequences, Diana, you taught me that. I walked out while she was still begging, got in my car and drove away from 6 years of my life without looking back. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in watching someone's life unravel through increasingly desperate text messages and voicemails I mostly ignored. Diana started with promises, long rambling messages about how she'd change everything if I gave her another chance, how she'd finally booked a therapist appointment and was ready to work on herself, how losing me made her realize what truly mattered. When promises didn't work, she shifted to seduction, sending photos and messages that might have worked 6 months ago but now just felt sad and manipulative. Then came the threats. She'd hurt herself if I didn't come back. She'd tell everyone I was abusive. She'd make the divorce as expensive and painful as possible. I documented everything, forwarded the threatening messages to my lawyer, kept building my case while she kept dismantling hers. My friend from work told me she'd been posting vague dramatic updates on social media about betrayal and narcissists until several people called her out for the open marriage test. Apparently word had spread through mutual friends and nobody was buying her victim narrative. She tried reaching out to my family, called my sister claiming I'd abandoned her during a mental health crisis. My sister listened politely, then told her that manipulating your marriage and facing consequences wasn't a mental health crisis, it was accountability. The really pathetic part came when she showed up at my office building twice. Security had to escort her out both times while she screamed about how I owed her a conversation, how 6 years of marriage meant I couldn't just walk away, how cruel I was being by ignoring someone who needed me. My boss pulled me aside after the second incident, asked if I needed help with a stalking situation. I assured him it was just a messy divorce and would resolve itself soon. Meanwhile, Veronica and I had been seeing each other regularly, nothing serious yet but definitely moving in that direction. She made me laugh in ways I'd forgotten were possible, asked intelligent questions about my work, insisted on splitting checks and planning dates herself instead of expecting me to orchestrate everything. The contrast with Diana was so stark it was almost funny. Where Diana had demanded constant attention and validation, Veronica was content with comfortable silence and genuine conversation. Where Diana had viewed my career as just a paycheck source, Veronica found my actual work fascinating and asked follow-up questions that showed she'd been listening. I'd found her journal during one of my trips back to the apartment to collect more belongings, left carelessly open on the coffee table like she wanted me to see it. The entry from 2 weeks before our anniversary detailed her entire plan. Need to shake things up with M. He's become too comfortable and boring. Might suggest opening the marriage just to see him panic and fight for me. Veronica keeps talking about how conventional marriage is a trap. Maybe if I hint at wanting freedom he'll realize what he could lose. Worked with Jake in college when I threatened to break up. I photographed every page, the calculated nature of her manipulation laid out in her own handwriting, sent copies to my lawyer who said it would be helpful for the divorce proceedings. By week 4 Diana had been forced to move out of our apartment, couldn't afford the rent on unemployment benefits, ended up in a studio in a rough neighborhood 40 minutes outside the city. She posted a photo of the place on social media with a caption about downsizing and simplifying. The comments were mostly sympathetic until someone who knew the full story replied, "Maybe don't manipulate your marriage next time." She'd taken a retail job at a department store, minimum wage folding clothes and dealing with customers. The dramatic fall from corporate communications manager must have been crushing for someone who'd always valued status and appearances. Her former coworkers had distanced themselves completely. The ones who'd been her happy hour crowd suddenly had no time for someone who'd been fired for unprofessional conduct. I ran into one of them, Jessica, at a coffee shop. She pulled me aside to apologize for not seeing through Diana's complaints about me sooner. She made you sound like this controlling bore who wouldn't let her have fun, but after everything came out we realized she'd been lying about a lot of things, her work performance, her relationship, probably her entire life. The vindication felt good even though I hadn't been seeking it. Diana tried one final manipulation tactic, claimed she was pregnant and I was the father, demanded I come see her immediately to discuss our future. I calmly replied that we hadn't been intimate in over 2 months and I'd be happy to take a paternity test. She dropped the claim within hours, didn't even try to maintain the lie when called on it. My lawyer filed the divorce papers citing irreconcilable differences and emotional manipulation. Diana couldn't afford a lawyer so she was representing herself badly, trying to claim she deserved alimony and half my assets despite our relatively short marriage and her responsibility for its end. The judge looked at the evidence, the recording, the journal entries, the HR documentation of her workplace misconduct, and awarded her nothing beyond splitting our minimal shared property. 6 months after our anniversary dinner, I was legally single, dating Veronica exclusively, and living in a better apartment closer to work. Diana had disappeared from social media entirely. Mutual friends said she'd moved to another city to start over somewhere her reputation hadn't preceded her. Her sister Emily reached out once to thank me for not destroying Diana worse than she'd destroyed herself, said their parents were still maintaining the financial cutoff and Diana was apparently in therapy now, actually trying to address her behavior patterns. I wished her well genuinely, hoped Diana found whatever she needed to become a better person, but I was done being the person she practiced on. 6 months turned into a year, then longer, and my life became something I barely recognized from the version Diana had been so desperate to escape. Veronica and I moved in together after 8 months of dating, no games or tests, just 2 adults who enjoyed each other's company deciding to share space and build something real. She got promoted to VP of Communications at Vanguard. I got headhunted by a competitor offering 20% more salary and the chance to work on cutting-edge satellite technology. We traveled to Portugal and Japan, took cooking classes together, adopted a rescue dog named Apollo who had more emotional stability than my ex-wife. The life Diana had called boring became full and satisfying once I stopped trying to satisfy someone fundamentally unsatisfiable. I heard about Diana occasionally through the grapevine. She'd moved to Phoenix and was working her way back up in corporate communications at a smaller firm, had apparently stuck with therapy and was dating someone age-appropriate who worked in education. Emily told me their parents had cautiously reinstated limited financial support after Diana demonstrated genuine behavior change, though the trust fund remained frozen. She'd sent me a letter once, about 18 months after the divorce, an actual handwritten letter that arrived at my office. Marcus, I know I have no right to contact you and you have every reason to ignore this, but my therapist suggested I write to people I've harmed as part of my recovery process. I was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and borderline traits, which doesn't excuse my behavior but helps explain the patterns. I spent 6 years treating you like an emotional support system that existed to validate me while I searched for something better. I tested you constantly because I didn't believe anyone could actually love me without conditions, so I created conditions to prove myself right. The open marriage idea was my most destructive test, designed to make you fight for me so I could feel wanted. When you didn't react according to my script, I escalated until I destroyed everything, including my own career and family relationships. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. You were stable and kind and present, all the things I claimed to want but actually resented because they forced me to confront my own instability. I'm genuinely happy you found someone who appreciates those qualities. Veronica sounds like she deserves you in ways I never did. I'm not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation, just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did and why it was wrong. I'm working on becoming someone worthy of the kind of relationship I threw away with you. I hope your life is everything you wanted it to be. Diana. I read it twice, felt a complicated mix of closure and sadness for the years we both wasted, showed it to Veronica, who said it sounded like genuine accountability rather than manipulation. I never responded, didn't feel like I owed her that, but I did keep the letter in a drawer as a reminder that people could change even if it came too late to save what they'd broken. The final piece of closure came unexpectedly 2 years after our divorce. I was at a conference in Chicago presenting research on satellite guidance systems when I saw Diana across the hotel lobby. She looked different, healthier somehow, less performance and more substance. Our eyes met and she gave me a small nod of acknowledgement, no dramatic approach or scene, just recognition between two people who used to know each other. Later that evening I got a text from an unknown number. Saw you at the Palmer House. You look happy. That presentation on orbital mechanics was actually interesting even though I only understood about 40%. Glad you found your person. Take care, Marcus. I stared at the message for a long time before responding simply, you too, Diana, genuinely. That night Veronica and I had dinner at a steakhouse overlooking the Chicago River. She'd flown in to surprise me after my presentation. We talked about maybe buying a house together, possibly getting married in a year or two when we were both ready. No tests, no manipulation, no drama, just two people who'd found each other after learning what they actually needed from a relationship. You ever think about what would have happened if Diana hadn't proposed that open marriage? Veronica asked over dessert. Sometimes, probably would have stayed married for years being slowly miserable until something else broke us. Her test was actually a gift in disguise, forced me to see who she really was before we had kids or bought property or got more entangled. I reached across the table for Veronica's hand. Plus, I never would have messaged you on LinkedIn and discovered what it's like to be with someone emotionally healthy. She laughed, squeezed my hand. Best worst decision she ever made. We flew home the next day, back to our apartment and our dog and our comfortable life full of the boring stability that Diana had found suffocating but Veronica found peaceful. I'd learned that the right person doesn't need you to prove your love through jealousy or tests. They just appreciate you showing up consistently and building something real together. Diana taught me what I didn't want through 6 years of manipulation and games. Veronica taught me what I did want through 2 years of honest partnership and genuine respect. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. You just have to be brave enough not to chase after it when it goes.